These are the 6 steps you need to use while making a cake. Bake the cake, make buttercream, make fillings, assemble cake, decorate, take photos. Let's get right into this video. I'm going to be making a vanilla cake recipe using the reverse creaming method. Instead of creaming the butter with the sugar, we're going to add the butter to the dry ingredients until we get a crumbly and coarse texture. We're going to let it mix for about 3 minutes, and then you'll start to see that the texture changes a little bit. This is the consistency we're looking for. Then we're going to go ahead and mix together all of our wet ingredients, and we're going to be adding half of the wet into the batter and letting it mix for about 2 minutes on medium speed. Then we're going to go ahead and add the rest of the milk and beat again for about 1 minute until it all comes together. Then you can go ahead and scrape down the sides, and this is where I'm going to be adding the rest of the milk so that we get a nice texture on our cake batter. It should come together right after about a minute, and remember to have your cake pan greased and ready to go. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and add my cake batter. I do 2 of these, but I only have 1 pan, so I have to do it twice. And I'm going to bake it at 350 for about 50 to 55 minutes. So just make sure to check it with a toothpick until it comes out clean. It depends on everybody's oven, but this is what it looks like when it's all ready. And again, I made 2. Moving on to my Swiss meringue buttercream, I do use a double boiler / bain-marie for this, and I'm going to go ahead and add my sugar and my egg whites and put it over my pot of water so that it could reduce the sugar in there and warm up a little bit. One good tip for this is that people like to use their fingers to make sure that there's no graininess and that the sugar is all dissolved, but I really like to use a thermometer, and it's really helpful if you have one. So the temperature should be about 113 to 120, and that's how you know it's ready. You can go ahead and move it to your mixer with your whisk attachment and let it beat for about 15 to 20 minutes until we get stiff peaks. Adding cream of tartar helps stabilize the egg whites while they're whipping and that they don't deflate. Also, so does salt. It also gives a little bit of flavor because we're not going to add flavor in our butter. While the meringue is mixing, I like to prep my butter, and to do so, I warm it up in the microwave for about a minute depending on how hard my butter is. This is going to really help the process of the buttercream so it's not hard and really hard to work with. This is the consistency we are looking for in the butter, not all the way melted, but pretty soft and easy to work with. Also, I like to collect my tools and utensils that I'm going to be using so that I can make the cake decorating process as smooth as possible. I like to work in between tasks, so while our buttercream is mixing, I'm going to go ahead and cut my cakes. I'm going to cut off the top so that we can get a nice even layer. And then we're going to go ahead and cut the middle part as well so we can get 2 slices out of this for a total of 4 layers on our cake. Remember to clean up your space as you go so that you can have an easy process when you are decorating your cake and don't get overwhelmed. Finish up setting up for our buttercream. I'm going to go ahead and take 2 piping bags and set 2 different tips on these. I like to use the interchangeable tip one so that I can easily switch out tips instead of getting a new bag. For our first tip, I'm going to be using the number 32 Wilton tip, and that's what I use for the smaller detail on the side of the cake. For the big borders, I use number 8B, and this one's just a bigger piping tip, same shape as that smaller one that we're going to be using. Coming back to check on our meringue, it should be double the size and have stiff peaks. This is the consistency we're looking for, and it's ready to go. We're going to be switching over to the paddle attachment and start adding our butter. I like to give the butter a little bit of a mix and make sure it's all incorporated. We can add a little bit at a time so that it doesn't splash everywhere. Once all of your butter is in, we're going to let it mix for another 15 to 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and check on it. It should be coming together. It might look a little bit curdled, but trust the process and let it keep mixing. At this point, it's coming together, and I'm gonna go ahead and add my vanilla, or you could use whatever flavoring you're gonna be using. And just keep letting it mix after you add your flavoring. I'm gonna take out a little bit of the buttercream so that I could melt it in the microwave for about 30 seconds, and then we're gonna go ahead and add it back into the buttercream so I could just change it and give it a smoother, silkier texture, and it's gonna be a lot easier to work with when you are frosting your cake. When you do this, make sure it's not more than half of the buttercream. Just use a little scoop, and that should be good enough for it to give it a different texture. Moving on to our strawberry jam filling, I just bring them to a simmer for a little bit, and we're going to be adding cornstarch to thicken it up. If this is your first time making a jam filling, make sure to add a little bit of water to your cornstarch so that it doesn't stay all dry and clumpy. We're going to go ahead and add our mixture to the strawberries and help it thicken up a little bit. The cornstarch helps it thicken up really fast, and this is the consistency that we're looking for our jam filling. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of lemon for flavoring, and also you could add sugar for taste. You can set it aside or put it in the freezer to cool meanwhile you work on your cake. Back to the cleaning tips. Get through your dishes because these things are super stressful and it gets super messy really fast when you're making a cake. Along with the strawberry jam, I like to put a whipped cream inside. So I like to use 1 cup of whipped cream and a little bit of sugar. Again, right here we're going to be adding whatever flavoring you want. I like to use vanilla, and I'm going to be using that same jam we made earlier and add a little bit of that to give it more of the strawberry flavor. Finally, to the cake, we're going to add a dollop of buttercream to our board. And I like to add the thickest bottom layer to the board so that we can get a good thick base to work with. Simple syrup is going to be your friend. Don't be afraid to use it. Create a nice thick border so that we can put in our filling. And I'm going to go in with 2 scoops of whipped cream, the strawberry whipped cream that we made. I use just the regular ice cream scoop from the store, and that's going to be a good amount for me. And then for the strawberry jam, I just eyeball it, and it should be about 2 scoops as well. And I like to blend it all in so that it can be an even layer of filling. And then here we go, we're going to repeat all of the steps that we just did and add, starting with the simple syrup, then whipped cream and jam. Make sure to top it off with the last bottom layer. So you should have 2 bottom layers of your cake, and one's going to be on the bottom, one's going to be on the top, so that you can get a nice even flat layer on top. Once you have assembled your cake and put it all together, we're going to be doing a crumb coat. The crumb coat is very important so that it seals all of the crumbs on the first layer of buttercream and you do not get the final layer of buttercream all dirty. And here I'm just making that final color. We're going to be using pink buttercream while the cake is cooling from the crumb coat. And again, make sure to clean up because I mean, unless it's just me that my house is messy and there's always something to clean, but it makes your cake decorating process so much easier and smoother, less stressful. And let's not forget that this garbage can, oh my gosh, it's always going to be full, especially when I'm making a cake because there's just a lot of napkins and everything that I use. Alrighty, so we have our final layer here, which is going to be pink. I like to take a little bit of that and melt it in the microwave for about 15 seconds and pour it back into the rest of the buttercream so I can get a nice, smooth, and clean texture. While you do this, make sure to take out the air bubbles with your spatula, and that's going to help you get the cleanest layer of buttercream. For this process, I like to use my offset spatula first because I will just be spreading the buttercream all over the cake, and then I go in with the big scraper. You could either use a metal one or a plastic one. Either one is going to be nice and helpful. Once you use your tall scraper, it's going to go ahead and leave you the edges on top, which then I go in and scrape off with the offset spatula. So your base is ready, and we're going to go ahead and start doing the big borders around the cake. Again, we are using the piping tip number 8B right here, and I'm going to go ahead and use that for the top and the bottom. When doing the side borders, I like to use a cup and go ahead and stencil out that half circle because it's going to make it easier to visualize where each border should be going. Down at the bottom, we're going to go and give some dimension by using the small shell. With the same tip, I like to do 2 little shells and create a heart. I decided to keep using this tip, and I did 3 little shells at the bottom. Using the medium round tip, I went ahead and I wrote the happy birthday. Now it's time for all of the sprinkles. The sprinkles give it a lot of pop and dimension as well, so it doesn't look so flat. I like mixing sprinkles, so I love using the white ones for sure, and then I added a little bit of pink so it can give it a pop. And last but not least, I spray the cakes with lots and lots of edible glitter. I love using the silver one. Now that our cake is all finished and beautiful, we're going to go ahead and give her a photo shoot. I like to set up a white silky backdrop, and I have a fluorescent sheer sheet on the bottom. I use the natural lighting from my big window in the kitchen, and if I need more, I will use a ring light to make it brighter. And this is how our final product came out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that I was able to help you create your own heart cake. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and I will read them to make sure to help you guys even further.